In this video, we will be discussing the history and techniques of video editing. I'm going to start by listing the pioneers of video editing and film, and then describing how they merge into one another, critically assessing them. Edward Muybridge, an extremely influential photographer from the 1800s, famously proved horses can fly, whilst galloping that is. But that's not all he's famous for. He also invented stop motion, by accident. Here's how he did it. He lined up several cameras and had someone ride a horse in front of them, triggering each camera as it galloped past. The images alone proved that the horse's legs would simultaneously lift from the ground in a single frame, but he wanted a way to show his findings to others. So he invented the zoopraxiscope, a device used to project animated versions of his photographs as moving picture sequences, kind of like an old-school GIF. The famous Lumiere brothers, French inventors and pioneers of the early motion picture camera, and a projector called the cinématographe, which is where the word cinema came from. The brothers created the film La Sortie des Ouvriers de l'Usine Lumière, which means workers leaving the Lumiere factory, which is considered to be the first ever motion picture. The cinématographe worked from the lamp emitting light, mounted behind a semi-transparent film that projects a series of changing images on a screen. George Miles was a French illusionist and film director who played a crucial role in the development of early cinema. He was well known for his use of special effects, popularizing techniques such as substitution splices, multiple exposures, time-lapse photography, dissolves, and hand-painted color. More recognizably, he was one of the first filmmakers to use storyboards, something almost all filmmakers use today. A Trip to the Moon and Impossible Voyage, both films created by Miles, are considered among the most important early science fiction films. He was the first to use jump cuts and really experiment with editing. Thomas Edison invented the kinetograph, also known as the first motion picture camera. It would take pictures quickly, and by playing the pictures together it would make things appear as if they were moving. He also built the kinetoscope, used to view the movies filmed with a kinetograph, which was a device installed in penny arcades allowing people to watch short and simple films through a peephole. It was publicly exhibited in 1891. D.W. Griffiths was an American director, editor and producer who pioneered modern editing techniques the industry uses today. He is most remembered for his films A Birth of a Nation and Intolerance. The Birth of a Nation used advanced camera techniques as well as a complex narrative, which set the foundation for the rise of the film industry in America we know so well today. The film was especially controversial for its racist themes and extremely negative depictions of black people and glorification of the Ku Klux Klan. The film has been condemned to this day for its racist narrative, but praised for the techniques used in the film, revolutionary for its time. The film was censored in several cities, causing riots and havoc at screenings. The film Intolerance was Griffith's response to the critics. He had more successful films after this, but many commercial failures too. He had created about 500 films in his lifetime before dying in 1948 from a cerebral hemorrhage. Lev Kuleshov was one of the founders of the first ever film school. He was a Russian filmmaker. He was known for the invention of the style Soviet montage, including the use of editing to elicit an emotional response from the viewer, creating a psychological effect. This is a principle known as the Kuleshov effect. He also developed the theory of creative geography, which is the use of the action around a cut to connect disassociated scenes together into one narrative. Montage editing is defined as a technique in film editing in which a series of short shots are edited into a sequence to condense space, time, and information. The term has been used in various contexts. It was introduced to cinema primarily by Sergei Einstein, and early Soviet directors used it as a synonym for creative editing. Linear video editing is a video editing post-production process of selecting, arranging, and modifying images and sound in a predetermined, ordered sequence. For the most part, video editing software has replaced linear editing. In the past, film editing was done in linear fashion, where film reels were literally cut into long strips divided by takes and scenes, and then glued or taped back together to create a logical sequence of film. Linear video editing is more time-consuming and highly specialized and tedious work. The Academy Awards, also known as the Oscars, are a set of 24 awards for artistic and technical merit in the film industry. given annually by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences to recognize excellence in cinematic achievements as assessed by the Academy's voting membership. The first Academy Awards presentation was held on 16th May 1929 at a private dinner function at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel with an audience of about 270 people. The post-awards party was held at the Mayfair Hotel. Analog film is described as a plastic sheet of photosensitive emulsion that comes in various formats for still and video cameras. When exposed to light, plastic-based film creates an analog of the actual scene. Film was never called analog until digital cameras came on the scene. In 1880, George Eastman began to manufacture gelatin dry photographic plates in Rochester, New York. Along with W.H. Walker, Eastman invented a holder for a roll of picture-carrying gelatin layer-coated paper. Hannibal Goodwin's invention for the nitrocellulose film base in 1887 was the first transparent, flexible film. Digital cinematography is the process of capturing and recording a motion picture using digital image sensors rather than through film stock. As digital technology has improved in recent years, this practice has become more dominant. Since the mid-2010s, most of the movies across the world are captured as well as distributed digitally. Shooting in film is an old-school method of filming, whereas now most people shoot in digital. That doesn't mean film isn't used anymore though, and here is when we begin to critically discuss. Since the main group of people who are shooting in film commercially is wedding photographers, some shoot on film exclusively, while others take a more hybrid style where they will shoot in digital and film, as it can help give them the kind of style that they're looking for in their work. Now let's move on to explaining the digital techniques that are being used today. Continuity editing is the process of creating a smooth and seamless narrative experience for the audience, also known as invisible editing. The technique of invisible editing was pioneered by D.W. Griffiths. It's generally used in feature films and dramatic television. It belongs to productions where scenes can be covered from multiple angles that repeat the same action and dialogue, creating a consistency of time and space. Continuity editing may not be used so much in horror films or thriller genres, as the intention is to confuse the audience and make them uneasy. Continuity editing is to make a smooth and seamless narrative experience. The shot sequences flow seamlessly into one another, making the film easy to watch and gives a narrative structure. There are examples of techniques including eyeline matching and 180-degree rule that come under continuity editing. They both help to make the audience feel comfortable and help the narrative make sense. Sometimes these rules are broken to make the audience feel uneasy. Montages and jump cuts break this convention and have the opposite effect. They throw the audience off and can make the audience feel disoriented, which is more likely to be used in horror or thriller than continuity editing techniques. The 180-degree rule was developed so that viewers could follow an action without getting confused. It's useful when two related sequences of action are happening simultaneously. Once the sense of direction has been clearly established, it's carefully maintained. This rule is most commonly seen in dialogue scenes between two people. It comes under continuity editing, and it's used very commonly in dramas to immerse the viewer in the world. It's not so commonly used in thrillers or scenes where the audience should feel uneasy, for example in this Batman scene.
Place. Even to a guy like me, that's cold.
Where's Dan?
Those mob fools want you gone so they can get back to the way things were.
The 180-degree rule is there to help create a seamless narrative. It is to make the audience feel comfortable and understand what's going on easier. Shot reverse shot or shot counter shot is a film technique where one character is shown looking at another character, often off screen, and then the other character is shown looking back at the first character. Since the characters are shown facing opposite directions, the viewer assumes that they are looking at one another. Often used in dialogue sequences, a shot reverse shot is commonly used in dramas as it helps immerse the viewer in the story, much like the 180-degree rule. A point of view shot helps immerse the audience in the world. It puts the viewer in the shoes of the characters. Point of view camera and editing is a key device that filmmakers use to create audience identification with characters in film. They often use the technique to place the audience in the position of the main character. It sometimes could be the point of view of an object of interest. A point of view shot is good for immersing the audience or putting them in the shoes of the character from the film. A point of view shot is suitable for the horror or thriller genre, sometimes even the action genre, as it fully immerses the audience and is to build drama or tension, or to give the viewer the sense of what the character is experiencing. A point of view shot may not be used in something like a documentary, as that is more commonly used to convey the experience of a character, although may be used during a narrative recreation within the documentary. A match-on-action cut features cuts which are placed in the middle of a specific action. A wide shot of a man raising his arms might cut midway through the motion to a closer shot of him in the same position finishing the action. In this type of cut, the fact that the action can begin in one shot and completed in the second creates a visual bridge which stops viewers from noticing the cut. Match on action is part of continuity editing. It can blend two separate shots into one fluid motion. This technique is good to immerse the audience in the scene and clearly understand the narrative of what's going on. In film, a match cut is cut from one shot to another, where the two shots are matched by the action or subject and subject matter. An example of this is in Psycho shower scene. A match cut is a good way to convey a metaphor or message through matching two similar shots together. Cross-cutting is used to cut between two different actions happening at the same time. By cutting back and forth between these two different events, the director can establish that they are somehow linked. For example, in the film Jaws from 1975, the director cross-cuts between point-of-view shots of the killer shark moving beneath the waves and shots of swimmers splashing above the waves. By cutting back and forth between the two locations, audience soon get the impression that the shark attack is imminent. Cross-cutting is a tool used by a director to link two different things. This is useful in, for example, a horror or thriller where an attacker may be approaching an unsuspecting victim. Shots of the attacker will be cross-cut with shots of the victim until the attacker finally reaches the victim and the murder happens. It's linking two different shots that would otherwise have no correlation to one another. Cross-cutting is very reminiscent of the montage, as it cuts between different things occurring, slowly linking them together. Montage editing is an expressive use of juxtaposing shots, often unrelated, with music or sound that may or may not be working with the images or counterpointing it. Working with the images meaning parallel, or counterpointing it meaning contrapuntal. Montage editing is much more common in a music video or advertisement production. Juxtaposition is positioning two object or character scenes to compare and contrast them, establishing a relationship between them. A montage tends to be fast, maybe even subliminally creating a connection between two different shots. Montages can be quite effective for building tension or drama. They are used a lot in action films. An example of how a montage edit would be used in a film may be in a horror genre, where if there was a montage of a killer, they may use contrasting music such as classical or relaxing music to create uneasiness and tension within the audience. A jump cut is deliberately not matching an action so as to disrupt the illusion of continuity, used by the Russians, for example, Ziza Vertov, Man with a Movie Camera, and also French New Wave filmmakers of the 1960s. Jump cutting is not part of continuity editing. It doesn't help to create a seamless narrative and is often used, for example, in a thriller to suddenly change the scene and disorient the viewer. Jump cuts can be used to carry a narrative, maybe represent the passage of time. A film transition is a technique used in the post-production process of film editing and video editing, by which scenes or shots are combined. Most films will also be selective in the use of different types of transitions in order to convey a certain tone or mood, suggest the passage of time, or separate parts of the story. Transitions include dissolves, L-cuts, fades, match cuts, and wipes. So that's it, the editing techniques that are used today and the pioneers who helped create them. Thank you for watching.